the struggle with Mikio, that sashimi knife was broken in some fashion. From what I understand, it was a bamboo-handled knife, so I'm guessing that where the bamboo and the blade came together, it probably snapped right around there, which makes it really bad for going slash,
So it's
stab.
Just a
It's a
blade.
Fubon knife.
Right, so there's no what do they call
Handle?
that thing? No, the part of the metal that goes through the handle.
Yeah,
that long shaft at the tail. I can't think of what it's called.
Yeah. God.
The tang!
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah, that bit. Yeah, it didn't have a long one that apparently ran through. Or maybe it did, and it was just hard to hold on to. I don't know. But it's everywhere says the knife was broken. That'll be important here in just a minute.
Yeah, some knives, the cheaper ones, the tang like kind of tapers, and it's just the handle is just basically glued on.
I've also seen some where the tang is like an inch or two
Yeah,
long and
yeah,
just
crappy
barely
little knife.
wedged in there. And I think
Exactly.
that might actually be more likely what we find in this situation.
Yeah, so apparently our killer found that the knife was not nearly as strong as he thought it was.
Oh, no,
Oopsie.
he bought a budget knife.
Yeah.
Okay, so whichever version happens with the deaths of Ray and Mikio are upstairs, and our killer makes his way up to them. Now, the layout of their house, we've kind of talked about this a little bit already, but it's a little confusing. And by the way, if you need to go on the internet because there's reconstructions of their home, and there's photos taken of the home. It's a scale model that is disassembled. I'll warn you now, though, that the jerk that took the models didn't think about the fact that they were rotating the pieces 180 degrees back and forth.
Yeah, the guy who took the pictures of the model.
Yeah. So you have to stop and stare and figure out where one piece actually connects. But it'll help make this make a lot more sense.
It does. It's actually.
So he finds Yasuko and Nina, and he tries to attack them. But of course, lo and behold, he's got that broken knife. So he needs to go get a replacement. So he goes to the kitchen.
And he found them third floor.
It's believed that they were in the third floor. Yes.
And to get to the third floor,
It's up a ladder.
up a ladder from...
The second floor landing, where Mikio and our killer had their struggle.
Right. So he like comes up the ladder and he's like, "Ugh, dang it.
Like, boo.
Whoa.
Here's
Boo!
Johnny.
Haha. Right. It doesn't work. Okay, so he goes back down the ladder and then goes down the stairs and then goes down the stairs again.
And wounded at least the daughter, right?
Yeah,
He
Nina
had kind of like slashed at her.
Well, we don't know how. It's so. Both women were cut extensively and badly, so we don't know exactly which wounds were the initial ones, at least in the reading. But what Joe's getting at here is that Nina was cut, and Yasuko and Nina went and grabbed a first aid kit.
Okay.
To take care of her.
They came down the ladder to the second floor.
They must have come down the ladder to go to the bathroom to get that. And I think they went back up the ladder because it's easier to barricade or keep a bad guy from, quote-unquote, breaking in
Yeah, you take
up
a
a
hammer
ladder
and wang
hole.
on his fingers when he comes up the ladder.
Or you pull the ladder up.
It was a
I
fixed
think-
ladder.
Yeah.
It was a built-in.
But this is one of the things about this story that I've always kind of found kind of head-scratching. Is like, the mad slasher's in your home. He's just left you long enough to go get another weapon. And what do? Quick, get the first aid kit. Get some Band-Aids.
Well,
it's not what I would be doing in that
but
situation.
the thing is that, you know what, maybe they tried to get the phones and call out for help, but it would be found later that the phone lines were unplugged. So they couldn't actually have called for help. And they may have, in their panic, to be like, oh my God, the phone's not working. Go hide, quick, go hide.
Yeah.
And by the time they maybe would have realized, oh wait, let's bang on the walls to get our family next door to figure it out.
Or maybe you pick up something heavy to clonk the killer over the head with, when he comes up the ladder.
Yeah, drag the bed across. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that us, after the fact, 17 years on, we're looking at like, gee, that would have been easy.
That's
but
really
And
dumb.
here's what I'll say also about the first aid kit is that since we don't know which of the injuries were inflicted, it is possible, right, that maybe he like slashed the jugular or whatever. It was one of those situations where like a mother of a child had to say like,
yeah, got to patch it
wow,
up. Yeah.
right? It's not like, oh, you have a little cut on your arm, let's put a Band-Aid on it. It might have
here's
been
a little
like,
Hello Kitty
wow,
Band-Aid,
you are
you're
going
okay.
to bleed out if I don't get some kind of pressure with some kind of pack on
Maybe.
this wound.
I don't know.
So let's go here. Like,
I
and
still say when you consider the end results, they would have been better off looking for weapons.
100%.
Well,
I agree. But that's that 2020 vision.
But Devin's got a good point, because here's the thing. The details of exactly what went down at this point are
impossible.
so sketchy.
Yeah.
All we know is that the women were killed with a knife that was procured in their own home.
Yeah.
They were stabbed repeatedly and excessively.
Now,
Now, there's that
who
whole...
got stabbed the most?
well, the two women, I don't know of the two who received the most stabs.
Of everybody in the family, who got stabbed the most?
One of the two. I don't know which of the
Not
two women.
more so than the husband.
The husband did not get nearly as many wounds as the two women did, as Nina and Yasuko did. So it appears to be that, there's that whole, well, they angered him. And maybe they did. I mean, it
Probably
could be
they
that they were at the base of the ladder and, Yasuko is trying to give first aid, at which point our lovely jerkface comes back up the stairs with his new knife and takes it for a test drive.
Well, and he didn't come out unscathed either, right?
No,
so
no.
it's certainly possible that they inflicted some of the wounds on him, and so he was like, "Oh my God, you dumb, whatever, bleeps, right? I cannot believe that you had the audacity." Especially if he's like, he or she. I mean, again, we don't know. It could have been a woman.
I'm going to call the killer a he
I'm
the
going to
whole
continue
time,
with
just
that.
to be clear.
Yeah, I agree. But, it's possible that we've seen instances like this before, right? Where it's like the man who's attacking these women is like, okay, but like I have so much power over you. Like, what? How dare you offend me? In other cultures, that exists even more. And I know, having been close to Japanese culture for a while, for reasons I will not explain here.
She was in the Yakuza.
I was. It's true. That's a big thing. That subservience of women to men is a big thing, and for women to fight back, even young girls to fight back, even if it's to save their lives.
It's a giant
that
faux
could
pas.
have been a huge,
offense.
Just a huge
Pushing
offense.
a big button there, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah.
It could have been, but also maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah. So
we don't.
we don't know. What we do know is that at the base of the first floor stairs is Mikio's body. At the top of that flight of stairs is the bodies of both Yasuko and Nina. So that's where their bodies are. Of course, Ray is still in the bunk bed where he was smothered.
We're also dead.
Yes. We know with pretty good certainty that the family died around 11:30 at night. There's a couple of things that pin that down for us. One would be the contents of their stomachs. The other would be that the family that lived on the other side of the house, on the other side of that shared wall, heard at least one or two banging noises. And then later on,
And
we're able
the
to...
family being
the sister
and
and brother-in-law and
Okay.
mother of Yasuko, and they were able to pin down the time based on a TV show. They were, it was during whatever show.
But what did
And
they
that's-
think?
Well, they don't know, but you know what? I mean,
I guess
we've all
like-
lived in apartments where there was suddenly a bang, and you're like, what the hell was that?
Yeah,
And that's all
but
there is to it.
realistically, every time I haven't really cared about the people who were living next to me. I've definitely lived in a number of apartments where I've thought, wow, that didn't sound good, but
Am I going to go check it out? No.
I don't care about that person. But I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I've heard a sound like that, where I thought it might be somebody I cared about, where I was like,
But remember, it's a home with two young children, and children can be rambunctious, and things get dropped and tossed
true.
around. So
Yeah.
it's very hard. Again, 17 years on, it's easy to cast that.
oh,
you
for
should have
sure,
looked, but
yeah.
it's
This
hard
is
to say at the
100%
time.
2020.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe they were a noisy bunch. Maybe they made that kind of noise all the time.
Good point.
Yeah.
They might have. Well, let's so this is what happens in the murder. Now there's more going on here, and
After the murder, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Devin loves this part because I had to resort to not only bullets but sub bullets for all of the stuff that we've
Yeah,
got
you
going on.
formatted them really poorly, though.
I
so.
did, but that's because I copied it off of the internet.
I know you did.
No.
I'm 100%
Okay.
sure you did.
So, our bad guy during this struggle, Devin alluded to this a little bit earlier, was hurt during the attack. We believe that's during the attack of Yasuko and Nina.
He might have just accidentally slashed himself.
He cut his hand
too.
in some way and bandaged himself with the bandages that were found in the home. He would then eventually go on and it's always funny to me. They call him, what do they call him when they see it? It's the feminine hygiene pads. I mean, it's pads. He's using pads to try and staunch the bleeding. Now, you would think that this guy, having cut himself, at this point, he's probably just going to do a quick look around the house and try and grab some stuff and get the hell out. And if that's what you think, you're going to get really freaked out, because that is not what he did in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, when I murder
Stuck
people,
around.
this is what I like to do too.
You like to hang out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a warm, nice spot with
Talk
like
to
new
the
things.
corpses, your new friends, the corpses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the corpse family.
All right,
Yeah.
so here's what goes on. So yeah, our killer did look for money. He did. It's possible. It's listed as possibly stole 150,000 yen, which is at the time
About $5 American.
was about 12 to 1,300 American dollars.
That's a
It's not
lot.
it's money, but it's not a huge sum of money.
That's a lot to
but,
me.
But then he didn't leave. He lingered in the home, Hinterkaifeck
I was going to say he
style.
straight up Hinterkaifeck.
He pulled the Hinterkaifeck and stayed for somewhere between 10 to 11 hours.
Did
What
he?
did he do while he was there?
Yeah.
Because it's all the things I would have done.
Okay,
Well, some of them.
some of them.
Because I'm a lady, so I don't do
You
some of
are.
those things.
Okay, so he ate some melon out of the fridge.
Oh, I wouldn't do that. I don't like melon.
He
Well, you know, the melon, you want to get it before it went bad.
Yeah, fair
Waste not
enough.
wanting it.
he made some tea and drank it.
I would have done
An
that.
herbal tea.
I mean,
As we said before, tried to bandage the wound on his hand, first from the first aid kit, and then used feminine pads or sanitary napkins.
they are made to
soak
absorb
it up.
blood.
They
Yeah,
are meant
they
to
would be
soak
good
up
for that.
blood.
Listen.
Yeah.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
By the way, he left those bandages and the sanitary napkins in the home. Just
He-
didn't
yeah.
care. Just left them
all of
around.
it.
He ate several ice cream cups. They're referred to as popsicles in some places and ice cream cups in other places. But he ate 4 of those and left the wrappers to those 4 in 2 different trash cans in the home. At 1 o'clock in the morning, he went onto the family computer and he browsed the Shiki Theaters Company's website, tried to buy tickets for an upcoming show. By the way, oh, go ahead.
By show, you mean what, a play?
Yeah,
or
a play.
music? Or
Yeah, it was a play.
And so he didn't enter credit card information?
Well, no, see, that's the thing is the link for that theater company's website was already on the browser.
Oh.
So he basically pulled up a saved link.
Gotcha.
And then tried to buy the ticket. I did not enter any payment information, so was not successful. I kind of feel like maybe he thought it was saved in the browser.
Wouldn't that be handy? Yeah.
Wouldn't that be?
I said, well, it does in Chrome.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, don't do this ever, but if you guys ever were to get to my computer, my Chrome has all of my credit card information
Oh, it does.
saved.
Okay.
So you just have to type in the first 4 digits. So you have to know the first 4 digits of my card information, but
1,
that's
2,
all
3,
you have
4.
to do. Yep, that's it.
That's
right?
the first 4.
That's what my bank issued the card to me as. Yeah.
All right, cool.
But I mean, I have it saved because I don't like to remember all that stuff.
Now it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, but I don't
yeah.
think in 2000 they
No,
had that.
no.
capability.
Oh, and by the way, so going to the theater website, that browsing session lasted for a total of 5 minutes and 18 seconds. In the process of using the mouse, our killer would leave behind at least 1, if not 2, bloody fingerprints, so readable fingerprints, not smudgy things. At some point later in the morning, the killer would get back on the computer again. I don't have a timestamp for this. And then would go to the site of both Mikio's employee. Browsing session would last only 4 minutes and 16 seconds, so not very long. And then after that, the killer would unplug the computer from the wall. And I got the impression that not only did he pull the cord from the wall, he pulled the cord out of the back of the machine as well, which...
I heard in one place at least that he actually took the cord with? Because I don't know.
It was there.
It was there? Okay.
It was there. That was a translation issue because
is that what it was?
I know the post you're talking about, and then there's updates saying, oh, yeah, no, it was totally there.
Oh, okay, good.
It's just like there's talk about the fact that because it's the new year, the family had what we would equate to Christmas or New Year's cards in their home, and some sites will say, and those cards were taken by the killer. Now, they were actually taken by the police to confirm, do you actually know these people? When did you, it's kind of part of their investigative process, and then it was returned to the evidence of that home. So that's one of those little bits of misdirection that's unfortunately from translation.
Frankly, that like browsing the school and the workplace, to me, a little bit feels like that person trying to figure out if they can delay any alarms going up. Trying to see if like
night, though? That's
no,
weird.
But like to do that investigation of like, well, can I call the school and say, my kid is sick, so they're not coming in, and can I call this person's employer and saying, oh, hey, I am so and so, and I'm sick. And I'm not home.
Extend the time that people would not realize that they were
exactly.
dead.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
And because they stayed for a long time, whoever it was that was in, they stayed pretty much until. We'll talk about this. It seems until they realized I'm busted. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder if there was a bit of that sort of, okay, well, this person had a job and this kid was going to school because the other kid wasn't old enough to be in school yet, right?
6? I think that's old enough to be in school.
I thought 6 was the oldest one.
No, it was 8. Nina was 8. The girl was 8. Ray was 6.
Okay. Well,
and I think Ray had started school because, there's a whole bunch of talk about the fact that Ray had a bit of a speech impediment, so he was getting help with that. So he was in some.
Maybe those were just the 2 first ones. Then I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, a little bit. It feels like somebody trying to figure out: can I find the boss at the company? Can I find the teacher or whoever I'm supposed to call at the school? Can I figure out? Yeah, can I figure out how to extend my stay here longer?
Or maybe...
but also maybe it's just like extra
Miyazawa?
creepy.
Yeah.
Also possible.
Killer was bored and just, didn't want to actually do any web searches because those might be a little incriminating.
Actually, web searches at those times were pretty clunky.
Yeah.
Remember, this is still 2000. It's really hard to do web searches.
Yeah, very true. So clicking on saved links might be the easiest way to do it.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, it's also totally possible those were just the saved links, right? That was, like, most recent browsing history that, like, the father had been like, oh, yeah, I'm going to check out my son's school and,
Yeah, totally.
Well, in Japan, I mean, it's the 30th. Obviously, the 31st the next day. That's New Year's Eve. Mm-hmm. And most people have New Year's Eve off in schools. Is it off?
It's a holiday.
Yeah,
as far as I could tell, it was a holiday. The whole thing was a holiday time. It wasn't as if they were supposed to be at school the next day. Mm-hmm. I think Devin might have hit the nail on the head in the beginning in that Mikio may have been expected to work from home on the holiday, but not necessarily go into the office.
Not explicitly expected,
right.
But
it's not stated that he should be working, but he should be working.
Probably.
Kind of thing.
I have a job like that, too.
Okay, what else did he do? Well, he ransacked their house. He went through, he found family documents like bank statements and credit cards and driver's license and other things like that. He cut up some of the documents.
And by the way, there was no evidence. Did they find any evidence that anything was missing? Any documents taken?
Not explicitly, no. Nobody has said, the blah, blah, blah was gone. But it does appear that he cut up some of this documentation because that and the credit cards and stuff like that, they're all found in the bathtub, which is weird. Sans water, by the way. There's no water. It's not like
there's fingerprints all over the place.
Yeah, so there's fingerprints and probably DNA because he was bleeding all over all this stuff, just sitting in a bathtub.
Of course.
Which is frickin' weird. Let's see, what else? Oh, well, just, understandably so. All of this exertion, it takes its toll on our killer. and he decides to take a nice nap on the family's couch for a while.
Was that because they could tell because he was bleeding?
I'm guessing that it had to be part of it. I'm guessing
Yeah.
that the couch may have been in a bit of a disarray. I'm not 100% positive
It had
how they figured that
depressions
out.
on it, yeah.
Eventually, nature would call, and our killer would decide that it was time to take a poop, and he would not bother to flush the poop.
I don't know why
Typical
that's
guy.
extra funny to me.
Well,
He left a poop emoji for
Did,
the police.
Did he leave a lot of toilet paper in there too? or-
It doesn't. The toilet paper quantity usage is not explicitly stated, so we do not know if he's a 4 or an 8 sheet kind of guy.
Yeah, I know. But so, well, you're a guy. You know that occasionally you go into public restrooms and some guy will have come before you and left a big.
Please
old,
tell me you're not going to get too explicit here.
He's
No,
gonna-
no, no. But some guy will drop a deuce and just leave it, right?
Right,
Because
which
he's
is
so
horrid.
proud of his deuce. I've
Uh-huh.
never done this, but
The mad pooper, yeah.
But what's always amazing to me is there's no toilet paper. They leave the deuce with no toilet paper because they, and
A little bit of mud butt going
I don't know
on.
what they. I don't know
Oh.
if they stand up and sort of waddle over to the next stall real carefully and then clean up the mess there. But you know what I'm talking about, right? You've seen it, right? Yeah.
Sad to say I do.
Yeah, that's what I've always wondered about. It's like, dude, where's the toilet paper?
Can we move?
But
Yes.
that's why I'm asking this question.
So we are
Oh,
moving
okay, so
on
not
from
only
the,
did he
the
poop,
poop
but-
emoji, but no more poop emoji.
Did he also maybe leave some clothes or something? Please.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, he did leave some other stuff.
Yeah, there's still more stuff that he leaves behind.
Other than
at
poop.
some point in the evening, our killer decides that it is time for a change of wardrobe. So
Makes
he
sense.
changes his clothes because, well, we know this because there's a set of clothes left behind in the home.
Which had
So
a
they
lot of blood
presume-
on them, right?
Some.
So they must presume that he took some of the father's clothes.
Well, we don't know if he took some of Mikio's clothes or if he brought a change of clothes with him for his killer sleepover.
That would make
Again,
sense.
yeah, like you wouldn't be able to tell if I.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
did anybody know? Did they do an inventory of the clothes that were in the house? to see if anyone
There's
taken?
nothing definitive that says
frankly-
that he took Dad's pants and sweatshirt.
Yeah,
Nobody
I mean,
knows.
realistically, even like Boof, who like sees my clothes every dang day
Uh-huh.
of this entire world.
If some of my clothes
He would
disappeared,
not
I
know.
probably wouldn't know.
I wouldn't even probably know.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe it depends on what it was. But
Yeah.
there's some of my clothes where I would just like wouldn't even know. I'd think that maybe they'd just been disintegrated or something. I don't know.
So here's sub-bullet time.
Yeah.
We're going to go through the list, a partial list of the clothes that were left behind. There's more to it, but it becomes just ad nauseum at some point here. So, there are a pair of sneakers, which were Slazenger brand. They were sized in Korean. So remember, when you buy shoes, they typically have a primary country sizing on them, whether it be U.S. or European or whatever. These ones were in Korean.
Okay.
A dark green hip bag was found. It's kind of like a fanny pack, but apparently they call it a cooler bag than a fanny pack, which I didn't know that was possible.
Because it goes on your hip, not your fanny. Take that as you will, UK listeners.
Okay.
Okay.
A black handkerchief was found. A hat was left behind, a scarf, a down jacket, and a pair of winter gloves.
It was December. Mm-hmm. So that all makes sense.
Yeah. And there's a lot that's been put into not only all of those actions that we just talked about, but also the clothing that was left behind and what the meaning of all of that was. And we'll get into some of that. Actually, we'll get into it in theories.
Killer was rather careless from one point of view.
Yeah, but we need to finish our timeline here because we still haven't finished this story, believe it or not. So at some point in the morning, our killer decides that it's time to leave the home, and so he takes off. We don't know exactly when. What we do know is that Yasuko's mother tries to call. She can't get through. The phone is literally just not working, which is weird. She then goes over to the house herself. We don't know if when she got there, if the door was locked or not. This is a weird thing to us as Westerners, but in Japan, apparently it's not totally uncommon for people just to not bother to lock their doors because really is kind of that safe of a country most of the time. So either the door was locked and she went back to her home and got the key and came back over, or the door was unlocked and so she just went right on in. But she goes in the house. She finds Mikio's body on the first floor. She then goes up the stairs and she finds both Yasuko and Nina's bodies on the landing at the top of the stairs. It appears that...
At the bottom of the ladder, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, top of the stairs and bottom of the ladder are damn near the same thing.
Yeah, just to help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Visualize.
She was not one of those people who screamed and ran away. Instead, she was one of those people who jumped in the middle and tried to see if is her daughter and granddaughter alive. So she ended up, having a lot of blood on her as well. But they call the cops. The police come and they investigate the crime. By the way, I know that we talked about this offline, Joe, is that in the beginning I had said, was it 10 or 11 hours is how long our killer stayed. We don't exactly know. I mean, this guy could have, if the door was locked, he could have heard Yasuko's mother trying the knob and, did an OS moment and said, I got to get out of here.
And boogied out the back window.
He might have gone out the second story window again, which is weird, or he might have just bolted out of the front door, and chanced it, or he might have left just minutes before
Just
she came over.
Yeah. Well, frankly, given that we don't know how thin those walls were, I mean, I would assume they were thick enough that they couldn't hear like screaming or whatever through. But if you're just a single dude, kind of like putzing around the house, and you hear a conversation happening through the wall, where you hear somebody go, oh, that's weird, they're not answering. Okay, I'm gonna go next door to see. I mean, you can hear, it's possible, like having lived in places that have shared walls, you can sometimes hear those things.
Yeah.
Or
it's also possible that he just heard, I'm gonna go next door and see what's up.
Or it's
and just
possible that
ducked
he just heard sounds of life. He realized people
Also
were getting up next
possible.
door and realized.
I was going to say he
Maybe
may
it's
have
time to get
heard
moving.
the other exterior door for the other part of the dwelling open and close, and we're like, oh hell, just like Joe's saying, people are up and about, but he hears it because it's the front door slam, and that startles him out of his new, comfy little nest that
But
he's
it's
made.
also not impossible that the killer was in the house when the mom was in the house.
That's
Maybe.
highly, highly doubtful.
No, it's not impossible. I mean, like,
It's doubtful.
But
it's
they
not
could've-
impossible, but
right? It's unlikely that the family went up to the third floor because all the family was dead on the second floor. So it's possible.
okay.
It's unlikely, granted, but
Yes.
it's possible that that person was like, oh, crap, that door is opening. I can't get out the back anymore for whatever reason. I'm just going to go up here
He
and
might
hide.
have also hidden, around a corner, and she went by and went up the stairs, and he slipped out the front door.
yeah.
I mean, there's
There are
a
a lot
million
of
ways.
ways.
There's a million
Agreed.
ways, and this is a James Bond movie in the
Who the
making
hell
right
knows?
now.
I do
Yeah.
suspect. I think the door must have been locked though, because if assuming
I would
this-
agree.
our killer has any common sense at all, he's going to lock the door if he's going to hang out there and take a nap.
I would.
I mean,
Yeah.
hell yeah, you don't want. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of ways, but it could have happened. Okay, so the police come to the home and they investigate, and as I said before, they recovered tons and tons and tons of evidence.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, none of them led them to any firm suspects, and to this day, the case is unsolved. This is one of the things that I find as an outside oddity about this story. There's always outside oddities with the stories I find for some reason, and I don't search this out, but after the investigation was done and the investigators left, they posted a police guard in front of the door of the house.
Where he is still.
17 years later,
Same guy.
there is still a Japanese police officer standing in the entryway of this home. They have cordoned off the exterior of the home with that tall blue netting
Yeah.
so that nobody can break in from the backside. All the other homes that were right next to it, because like I said, there was 4 of them in a row, those other 3 homes are gone. This home is still there, and I find it so weird that,
I
that after
assume that-
all this time, it's still there. Like
I assume they're preserving it as a crime scene.
I would agree with that. I would.
Yeah.
After
I mean,
17 years?
why the hell else? Why? I mean, when you want to build your park, keep it around for all that time. It must be because it's a crime scene, and the case is
Maybe
not
they
closed.
didn't get the final
Active.
signature.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's an active crime scene, technically, right? I mean, they have not solved this murder. And yes, they've collected DNA and fingerprint evidence from this place, but I don't know the Japanese system well
I
enough
don't
to know if it would behoove them to keep that crime scene uncontaminated for as long as they possibly can. And since it's in the middle of a park, they can, right?
It's true.
not as though somebody's like, oh, I got to move into that apartment tomorrow.
Some developer is pushing
Yeah,
on them, right?
exactly. It's a safe crime scene to just keep.
Well, it's ironic that I mean, one of the motives has been proposed is that somebody wanted them out of there because they wanted to develop that park, and it would be
That's
ironic.
the greatest irony of irony.
Isn't that ironic? Yeah, it's like, oh, it's a crime scene now. It's not going to get demoed. You probably maybe shouldn't have murdered them.
That's not the first time we've come across that as a theory that it's the backfire motive.
Yeah.
We've seen that before,
We
and
have.
I can't remember what case, but at least one other we've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've only done 220 of them now.
Yeah, it could have been. It could have been the opposite, though. The opposite of the people who wanted to develop into a park. It could have been somebody who wanted, for whatever reason, just pure spite, maybe, to spite the people who really had a huge thing for having a park there, to the point where they demoed the entire neighborhood but a couple of houses. And if you have that much spite in you, to go murder the entire family, turning the house into a crime scene, therefore stopping the house from being removed and sticking a finger in the eye of whoever you don't like that wanted there to be a park there.
You know what that sounds like? A theory.
It
Yeah.
does.
Oh, it does. You know, I guess
know what?
I'm getting ahead of us.
I was waiting for you to run out of wind, and you have amazing lungs, so I couldn't do it.
Sorry.
All right. That is all of our story. So it is totally, finally, after this whole thing, finally time to get into theories.
Come on.
But before we do that, let's take a quick break.
Hey gang, this episode of Thinking Sideways is brought to you by Universal Pictures, which has a new movie coming out called The Snowman, which hits theaters on October 20th, 2017. The movie is based on the book by Joe Nesbo, and it's about a psycho killer who murders his victims during the first snowfall of every winter. Ooh. The Snowman stars Michael Fassbender, who you might remember from Alien Covenant, where he played a robot. Actually, he played two robots. But his role in this one is Detective Harry Hole. When Harry investigates a disappearance on the first snow of winter, he begins to suspect a connection to a string of old, cold cases. He realizes that he has only until the next snowfall to catch the killer. In other words, this sounds like it's right down our alley. Murder, mayhem, and mystery. Snowman is about a cat and mouse game between a killer and a detective. I haven't seen it yet, but I have seen the trailers, and it looks actually pretty good. It opens again October 20th, 2017. And I don't know about you, but I do plan to see it, so maybe I'll see you there. And you will get extra points if you wear your Frosty the Snowman suit. The Snowman, again, in theaters October 20th, 2017.
And we're back. The first theory is it's really unsatisfying.
Super.
Because the first theory is that this was just a random killer and it's a random killing.
Some random human.
Maybe.
So the way this theory goes is that this creepazoid picked this family out to brutally murder for no other reason than he saw them and he decided to start stalking them and then eventually would commit the crime. There is a little bit of back history that potentially supports this. Part of that is that Yasuko apparently said to her father-in-law on the 25th of December that for several days in a row, somebody had been parked in front of their house. And that's weird because in this park area, there's a lot of parking, so there's no real reason to park in front of their house. So people say, well, obviously that was the killer parking, and